Jim, you know my friend Trixie. Her aunt just fell and broke her hip, and she found out that she has osteoporosis. What the heck? What is osteoporosis?
So osteoporosis is when our bones get thin and they get weak. And one of the consequences of that are it markedly increases risk for breaking a bone. So where before you might fall and sprain your wrist or bruise your hip, now all of a sudden, you've got a wrist fracture, arm fracture, or you broke your hip. And there's a lot of things that can predispose people to osteoporosis. So we know that regular weight-bearing physical activity is important. When we put stress or strain on our bones, when we walk or lift weights or whatever, that helps keep those bones strong, actually. And when we lead a sedentary lifestyle, the bones get weak. We know that tobacco, long-term tobacco use, a very important risk factor for osteoporosis. Long-term chronic alcohol use is an important risk factor. There are certain medications, thyroid medications, some seizure medications, which may predispose you. Low vitamin D is also increasingly associated with osteoporosis. So vitamin D is a vitamin, it acts more like a hormone. We call it a vitamin. It doesn't come from our food, though. It actually comes from our skin in response to the sun. And most of us, we don't get out in the sun much anymore, and we cover up. In the wintertime, even if you're out in the sun, the energy from the sun may not be strong enough to convert the vitamin D, to make the vitamin D. And we need vitamin D to help us absorb calcium from our diet, right? So when our vitamin D is low, we can no longer, even if we're consuming enough calcium, we can't absorb it. And so what happens is, to maintain adequate calcium levels in the blood, we pull calcium from our bones, which weakens it. And then, obviously, we need to have enough calcium in our diet. And the average person needs about 1,000 milligrams, somewhere in there. Now, that goes up as we get older. So women 50 and older need about 1,200 milligrams, as do men once they turn 70.
Okay, so when I think of calcium, I think of cheese, milk, those types of things.
Sure. And that is it is a good source of calcium. There's about 300 milligrams per cup of milk, somewhere in there. But where does the calcium in that milk or cheese come from? Well, it came from the grass that the cow ate, right?
Sure.
So plants have calcium, and ultimately it comes from the soil, which gets into the plants, but it's from the plants themselves. So, we don't really need to drink milk and eat cheese to get an adequate calcium intake.
So I have read that there are dangers to eating dairy, so milk and the cheese and things like that.
Yeah, right. So what's interesting with regards to osteoporosis is, if you look at population data, the countries that have the highest milk consumption actually also have the highest rates of osteoporosis. And there's a lot of theories as to why that might be. One being is that protein is made up of amino acids, right? And when we overconsume protein, particularly with dairy proteins, it makes our blood more acidic. And we need to maintain our blood acid-base balance in a very kind of narrow range. And so to keep that in balance, when we acidify our blood, we pull calcium from the bones to help balance that out. So, in the old days, before they had the little purple pills, if you had heartburn, what did you take? You took some Tums. That's calcium carbonate, right? Because calcium is an excellent way to neutralize acid. We also know that, the leading source of saturated fat in the Western diet is meat and dairy, which increases risk for heart disease and diabetes and such as that. There's also an association between dairy consumption and prostate cancer in men. And then lastly, and I think one of the more interesting things is, lactose intolerance, right? So, if you step back and you think about it, about what dairy is, right? So dairy is a biologic fluid that evolved, species specific, to help baby mammals turn into mammals big enough to find food on their own. And once that happens, you don't need your mother's milk anymore.
Right.
That's why you don't go to the grocery store today and see big shelves full of human milk to bring them and put on your cereal, right? You'd find that kind of strange.
Yeah.
So even the idea that we should be consuming another mammal's milk that evolved to facilitate a 70-pound cow turn into a 1,700-pound cow just doesn't make sense biologically. And the other thing that kind of supports that theory, that idea is that we have an enzyme in our gut called lactase, which helps us digest milk sugar. And that gene is actually designed to turn off when we're about 4 or 5 years old, because historically that's when we were big and strong enough to go help find food on our own. And so we become lactose intolerant. And what people don't realize, many people don't realize, that is the genetic default state. We are designed to become lactose intolerant. We are not really designed to continue to be able to digest milk sugar into adulthood. But because of a genetic mutation that occurred about 7,000 to 8,000 years ago, which is, by the way, around the time we domesticated other mammals, it caused lactase persistence. And because the ability to continue to digest milk sugar provided a transient, a short-term survival advantage, because that 8,000 years ago was toward the end of the last ice age. So there was less availability of plant-based proteins. So having dairy now as a source of protein had a survival advantage. So in about 25% of the population today, 25%, mainly of Northern European descent, have inherited the pathologic ability to continue to digest milk sugar, right? And so we view lactose intolerance as a problem. That's exactly what we're designed to be. And what happens is when we can't digest that milk sugar, it actually passes into the colon and it gets fermented. And so it gets all bubbly. So all that gas and loose stool from lactose intolerance, that's where it comes from.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I feel like I was just in school.
Yeah, well.
I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, but that's really quite an education right there.
Thank you.
Even just around lactose intolerance, because I see that all the time.
Right.
You see that all the time.
And people don't realize.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Okay, so if it's going to cause that much of an issue, why not just supplement?
Well, so if you think about it, when we take calcium, when we practice, what I call nutritional reductionism, right? We reduce food down to its components, and we just take a calcium pill. What are we missing? As opposed to if we were eating real food to get our calcium, what's missing in that calcium pill? How many grams of fiber are in a calcium supplement? 0.
Yeah.
What about other cancer-fighting phytonutrients and antioxidants? 0. What about potassium that might lower your blood pressure? 0. So when we use food to get our calcium as opposed to a supplement, everything is much better because of all the other nutrients that come with the food that we eat. There's also some interesting research around, especially in women, that taking calcium supplements over time may increase the risk of depositing calcium in the coronary arteries. So it may increase your risk for actually having heart disease.
Right, that's huge.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, so if we're not going to do dairy, milk, cheese, if we're not going to do supplements, how are we going to get calcium?
Well, plants have calcium, like I said earlier. So take collard greens, for example, one of the best sources of calcium out there. I mentioned earlier that a cup of milk has about 300 milligrams of calcium. A cup of collard greens, which is not that much, right?
No,
handful? 350 milligrams, more than a cup of milk.
Oh, that's easy.
Tofu, a serving of tofu, another 350 milligrams of potassium, of calcium. And the reason is, what tofu is, you take soy milk and you curdle it, and then you scrape the curds off and you press it into, it's kind of like soy cheese, if you want to think of it that way.
Oh, it's the same process.
The curd, right, exactly. So you take the curds and you press into a block, and that's tofu. Well, historically, the curdling agent to create the soy curds, if you will, was gypsum or calcium silicate. So, and today in the in manufacturing, they still use calcium-based curdling agents, and some of that calcium stays in solution. So that's why that's such a great source.
So it's almost fortified with calcium.
Right, exactly. But but not like adding it. And speaking of fortified, there are plant-based milks now, soy milk, which are fortified. They do have calcium added. But again, getting it from food is much better because of the fiber and all that.
Sure.
Seeds are another great place. So sesame seeds, for example, and tahini is just ground up sesame seed. So 2 tablespoons of tahini has about 130, 150 milligrams of calcium. So seeds are another great source.
And I use tahini. I think this thing might be empty almost. I use this all the time.
Right.
So plenty of calcium, check. All right, so tell you what, I'm going to share with you today one of my all-time favorites. A tofu scramble.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we might even just have some time to steam up some collards as well. So we're going to get plenty of calcium today.
Can't wait.
Yep, so we're going to get cooking. Ready for this?
Ready.
Okay, calcium-rich tofu scramble coming
go.
right up. Okay, here is a block of tofu, right? Ultra firm, very firm. You want to make sure you get the most firm tofu that you can find. You don't necessarily have to press it, but please do drain it, okay?
Okay.
And what I'm going to do here is just, because I have gloved hands,
Right.
and just squish it up
Yeah. Looks like scrambled eggs already.
so that it looks like white scrambled eggs.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
And you know I love to impart flavor at any turn.
One of your favorite F words.
Yes, one of my yes, it is. And I'm going to take my coconut aminos, and if you wouldn't mind, let's put the heat on that pan.
Yep.
Let's put it about 3/4 the way up. Yeah, that's actually perfect. Yeah.
All right, perfect.
So just add a little bit of coconut aminos.
So explain to me, what are coconut aminos, and like when would you choose those others over something like soy sauce or something like that?
Yeah, so really it's pretty interchangeable. Soy sauce, low sodium soy sauce, tamari, shoyu, Bragg's aminos,
Right.
and coconut aminos. The big difference is the sodium content.
There you go.
So this is going to be pretty low in the sodium content. There's a little bit of sweetness to it, but some people just can't detect it.
Right.
So I do it really just for the sodium content.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So similar flavor profile to soy sauce without all the sodium.
That's right.
Oh, that's great to know.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to take these off, and we are just going to put our now seasoned tofu into the pan.
Seasoned. You have some more flavors
Partially
to go.
seasoned,
There
yeah.
we go. You have more flavors to go.
Yeah.
I know you.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh no, lots of nice, robust food. That's what I want to make sure that's fully,
Nice and
fully flavored.
Right.
Okay. Now the idea here is to get the tofu just a little bit crispy and on parts of that, just because I'm channeling back the scrambled eggs that I used to eat, right?
Right, sure.
So we just want, and the reason that you really don't need to squeeze the tofu is because a lot of that water is just going to come out
Cook out. Right,
during
sure.
the cooking process.
Sure.
So now is when you can, please, go ahead and start adding more flavor in.
All right, we're going to start with what this is: turmeric and garlic and
That's
salt.
right, and a little bit of salt. Yep.
And the turmeric's going to make it yellow, right?
Yep.
Make it look like eggs. That's brilliant.
I love it. Yep, it'll all start to change just as you're cooking it. Okay, I'm gonna pull my heat up just
So I have a question. Have you ever
Yeah.
served tofu scramble and tricked someone into thinking you really served them eggs?
So I can't do that because people know that I. but there is one ingredient that I always use
To make it more eggy? Mm-hmm. What is that?
and that you know what that is.
Yeah.
That is the kala namak,
Right.
which we know as black salt. So
Right.
it's black Indian salt, and it has a very it's like sulfur. I know. So I'm
You
gonna
want the nooch in there now?
I'm going to actually give you the honors. Let's put that in there. Let's put in
Nutritional yeast.
the nutritional yeast.
There we go.
So that's going to give it just a little bit of a cheesy umami flavor. It's not necessary that you always use it. I personally just like to use
Yeah,
it.
I use it a lot too.
And you can see we are getting on the
looks like
drier side, which is
And
what
it
you
also-
want.
it's amazing. It looks just like scrambled eggs.
Isn't that crazy?
Right?
Yeah. So let's make it smell like scrambled eggs.
Well, because it's the sulfur in here, right? That gives it that eggy, sulfurous flavor.
That's right. Yeah, it's almost just like a little, as you said, it's like the secret.
Now, this, I know they call it black salt because this is what it looks like, right? This is. I actually brought you this straight from India.
Yeah.
This is from the Delhi spice market, actually. But when you grate it, it's more of a pink flavor, right? Color, right?
Pink color, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you buy this already ground, it's going to look pink, and just make sure that it doesn't say pink Himalayan salt.
Right. So you want black salt or kala namak, right?
Yeah.
So tell me when to stop.
Okay.
I know that a little bit of this goes a
Lots.
long ways,
Yeah,
right?
but this is a very small little. Yeah, microplane is perfect for this.
Is that good?
Yeah, that's good.
All
Let's
right.
keep it there. Okay, so we are just about there, actually.
You want a few grinds of this?
Put in the pepper, dude.
All right. And this will also help improve the nutritional value, if you will, of the turmeric, right? Because it helps us absorb the curcumin, which is the active anti-inflammatory part of turmeric.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it. All right, so at the end here.
It smells good. It smells just like scrambled eggs, right?
Come on. Now, what I like to do at the end here, because it does seem to get a little dry, which is what I almost want, because I want that crispiness.
Yeah.
And what you can do also, if you're not getting the crispiness, is just pat it down with a spatula and let it sit
You can
for a
see
few
the little
seconds.
brown. You can see it there, yeah.
And then get in under it.
Yep.
And then
there
you
we
can
go.
see it, right? I just love a little bit of that crunch on there, that firmness.
Yep.
Okay, so at the very end, what I do, after I've dried it out just enough, concentrated all of the flavors,
Right.
is I hit it with just, I don't know, a tablespoon or so.
Yeah,
It's
that
a
plant-based
little
milk.
bit different each time. But just hit it with a little bit of milk,
And that's just the oat milk, right?
just the oat milk, whatever you have on hand, something unsweetened
Right.
and plain. And then it gives it just enough almost creaminess,
Yeah, yeah.
but still with that texture.
Yeah.
And it's just fantastic.
That's amazing to me.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to plate this up and
And
indulge.
dig in.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Can't wait.
All right, here you have it. This is my favorite tofu scramble.
Well, it looks delicious.
Yes, yes, I know. It smells great too. So,
And you know the amazing thing is, so this dish right here, this plate has probably about 500 milligrams of calcium, which is half of what the average person needs in their whole day. Certainly much healthier than milk.
yeah, well, that's for sure.
Right.
All right,
Well, I'm
so
going to add some of my favorite hot sauce. This happens to be the Trader Joe's jalapeno pepper sauce.
I'm a Cholula girl.
Yeah, there we go. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Just a little bit because we already have so many flavors
Yeah,
in those eggs. And by the way, I did steam the collards with a little bit of that coconut aminos.
Oh, cool.
So flavor everywhere.
All right, let's give it a shot here. Mm-hmm. Oh wow.
So good.
So good.
I love this
Another
one.
job well done.
Oh, thanks.